Hey, this is Angela with this week's Living the Ship. More and more I get asked the question, well, okay, great, I'm working on my active spiritual path and my journey and what my soul's ultimate purpose is. So how do I integrate it with the rest of my life? How does it meld? How do I get it to meld together? And the funny thing is, it actually is our spiritual life. It's all our spirituality because we are spirits in these bodies. And so it's just that the ego and the mind has segregated all of that and taught us that there is a time for, this and there's a time for that. And that this is, work and this is play and this is spirituality. It's like, okay, I go to, or like, and if you want to talk about belief systems, I go to church or I go to temple once a week and okay, the rest of the week, I go on my life, right? So the spirituality understanding of integration throughout our entire life is really important. And that's really what this Living the Shift stuff is all about. So that's where I'm going to start going with these webcasts. And it's really cool because I just came back from last week from Mount Shasta, California, which is one of the major energy vortices, spiritual energy vortices of the world. And I was teaching a class there, and I was there for 5 days. Only 2 days were for class, and the other 3 were for my personal enjoyment. And it's because I love that area so much, because in the town or the city of Mount Shasta, that is where they live this consciousness. And it's amazing and it's awesome to experience, because I have had such an experience of coming home when I go to that town. And everyone I've met, or a good portion of the people that I meet, are all very used to spirituality being part of their lives. There are people, it's like so many people there that do energy work and spiritual work and all this kind of stuff, and you think, how can they possibly make a living, because there's so much in one little area? And somehow they do. You know why? Because they trust and they have faith, they trust their guidance, and they trust that they're going to be taken care of, and so they are. That's the real basics of our spirituality, and yet it is so challenging for the ego to let go of the reins and allow that in many cases. So here's the thing. I'm also doing, I was guided to do this meetup group to teach other spiritual practitioners how to do marketing, how to create visibility for themselves, because many have all these misconceptions and they just don't know where to start and all this kind of stuff. And so I had been really pushed to do it, because before I did the spiritual work, I was in marketing for a long time. But the thing is, in starting this group, what was really funny was my left brain wanted to kick in back to where I was back in corporate when I left in 2006. That 20-year veteran in corporate marketing who was the director of global marketing, for an international company, and say, okay, well, this is how we would plan it out. This is what we would do. And I kept on getting, no. This is, that's not how you do it. And that's not how it's supposed to be done. And this is different. So I had a whole bunch of things come up that prevented me from actually doing any kind of planning and allowing the guidance and the trust in the guidance to come in, that I would know exactly what to say in the way that I needed to say it. I know my topic really well. So I did. And of course it came through really, in a very clean and clear manner. So what I talk to the spiritual practitioners about in talking about marketing is, so here's the leg up. We already know how to get guidance. We know how to ask our higher selves or our creator or our guides or whatever if something is for the highest and best for us. Now, in doing this meetup or whatever, it's funny because yes, I am technically teaching my competition to better market themselves and get better visibility and get their word out, but there's so much for all of us, and there's so many different flavors of ice cream, and it's amazing. So to me, it is a great lesson in how to start to totally integrate our spirituality into everything that we do. First of all, it is the acceptance of abundance for all of us, that we all are afforded abundance if we allow it. And yes, if we allow it, because it's all these things that we believe and all these things that we hold off or we don't believe about ourselves that cause us to prevent that abundance in our lives. So that's number one. Number two is, learn how to ask for guidance. And when we learn how to ask for guidance, it's not just for guidance on these other matters. We can use it to say, is it for my highest and best to go and do this today? Is it for my highest and best to have this meeting with this person to talk about this? Is it in my highest and best to do this particular event? Is it in my highest best? So in the context of that marketing meetup that I'm doing, we're talking about, I'm like, I can lay out the tools for you, and you ask if it's for your highest and best to use those tools. That's the leg up we have, and always to ask. We can ask our guides, and it doesn't take but a second once we get used to that connection and we know the answer yes or no. We know how it feels and what it sounds like without the ego intervening. So that's like one step. We go to work and something is going on. Is this the highest and best for me? Is this, to move forward? And so it's sort of starting to connect all of that kind of stuff. Many people who live in Mount Shasta, California, have been guided to literally just sell their house and up their lives and move there. Seriously, just gotten that guidance, and it is strong and loud. The inner voice, the higher self, is very loud there because the veils are almost non-existent. So, and they do many times without even having a clue as to how it's going to come together, how they're going to support themselves and everything else, and somehow it works out. And the clearer they are about listening to the guidance and the more trusting and more faith that they have in doing so, the better it is for them in the long run. So somehow it works. And when we can let go of those reins, and that's all a part of how this all starts to integrate, when we can let go of those reins and say, I trust, or I am headed for my ultimate soul's purpose. I am on the path to do exactly what I came here to do in the highest and best way, with grace and ease and balance and harmony and joy, and everything else is up to my higher self. I'm just going to sit in the passenger seat and enjoy the ride and look at the scenery and have fun with every moment and be here right now and enjoy what I'm doing. And when we can do that, it's funny how much all the other gunk just sort of falls away, because we lose all that anxiety. We lose that anticipation of a failure, or we lose that projection of all these things that what ifs. What if this? What if that? What if this? So that's part of the first steps towards integrating our spirituality into our lives. And actually, what I'm talking about, that is a lot for a lot of people. The first key step is to learning how to quiet the mind, learning how to quiet the chatter, and knowing how to discern between the voice of the higher self and the voice of the ego, because the ego will always be giving you things that have to do with power, that will have to do with hierarchy of some sort, like somebody's better or worse than others. But also then there's resistance, resistant energies and emotions like fear and anxiety, regrets, resentments, rejections, anger, guilt, doubt, sorrow, pain. Any of those come from the ego. When it truly comes from love, when it comes from the highest and best from all, you know that's coming from the higher self. And when we learn how to discern that, and we build the bond, and we take down the partitions between this level of our consciousness and that higher self level of our consciousness, then we can learn how to trust it, and we can learn how to have fun with it. And like I said, enjoy every moment, sit in the passenger seat and say, okay, well, I'm headed on this path, this is where I'm going, and I'm going to let it take me as where I may. And it's going to be awesome, and it's going to be the most efficient, and somehow it will all work out for the better, for the best, in the most, fun and amazing way. And when we can trust that, it is amazing how things will start to fall in place. And then if things start happening that we don't understand, then we can understand, then actually we can step back and look at the bigger picture and say, okay, I trust that somehow, even though I don't see it right here, somehow this serves me. And if I keep on asking every step of the way, does this serve me in the highest and best way? I have this intention. Does this serve that intention in the highest and best way? And if we can just at least follow that and then have fun with everything else, wow, just think of the load many of us will have off our shoulders. And I know that it's clearing a lot of that ego chatter that prevents us from actually getting there. Because the ego will try to say this is ridiculous, this will never work, we'll never be able to support ourselves. How will we support ourselves? It was funny, somebody was asking me the details of my business, somebody that I had taught a class to, and they wanted to know how I have my business, how this breaks down for me. And so I said, well, this is how many I see a week and whatever. And they say, I couldn't support myself on that, because I'm like, well, I limit myself to a certain number of people. And they're like, well, I couldn't support myself. I said, you'd be surprised. Sure you can. I leave myself space, and yes, I have a pretty busy schedule, but then I also leave myself space to do groups, meetups, and do classes. And I have other things like a book and this and that are all on the plate that are being worked on, and it all works out. And financially, it works out. And it started happening as soon as I let go of the reins. As soon as I said, okay, I trust, I know, and I feel it right here in my heart that this is what I came here to do, and I know that what I came here to do, the full version of it, the full view of it, is expanding in scope as I go, in places I might not understand now, but like it's like in a year from now I might not understand what that would be, but I know I'm on that path, and I can feel it every step of the way. And because of the fact that every step of the way I keep on getting reinforced and validated, then I trust even more every next step of the way. So the first key is taking that first leap of faith, the first step, listening to the higher self and shutting down the ego. Because the ego, if we sit and we start tapping on if we just clear our minds and we start tapping on our heart right here, which is like by the thymus, and we say, okay, what is it that will make our heart sing? The first thing that comes to your mind, tends to be part of what the topic of your soul's purpose is about. And if like as soon as you hear but that's the ego. As soon as you hear but, it's like shh, we're listening to the higher self. So seems simple, and I know for many people it's a lot of work to get to that point. But you got to start somewhere, and starting somewhere is clearing that chatter, clearing the mind, learning how to discern to the higher self, and really integrating it into not just when you're meditating, but also when you're doing stuff, when you're deciding on, should I take this vacation, should I go here, should I take this job, should I do this in this fashion, should I go to this, and should I take part in this? And sometimes it might not make sense, but if you can trust the answer, then you know that you're going to be guided in that way that you intend. So on that, I'm going to let you go. This is Angela with this week's Living the Shift.